Yep, the red
Okay,
dot's on.
I think we're good there. Okay. So I'll read the preamble for the meeting now. Due to the coronavirus pandemic and pursuant to Governor Sununu's Emergency Order Number 12 issued on March 23, 2020, in accordance with Executive Order 2020-04, the city is authorized to hold public meetings electronically without being physically present at the same location. Please note that there is no physical location to attend this meeting. However, in accordance with Emergency Order Number 12, the City of Lebanon has taken action to provide public access to the meeting by telephone with potential additional video access. And we've also provided public notice as necessary information for accessing the meeting, and provide a mechanism for the public to alert the city during the meeting if there are technical problems with access. For this meeting, Microsoft Teams is being used as the communication platform. All attendees have access to listen and participate in the meeting by visiting lebanonh.gov/live and clicking on the link to the Spencer Street Community Conversation. Instructions on how to attend are provided on the website. To ensure participants are aware of who is participating, all speakers are asked to identify themselves and to spell their first and last names before beginning to speak. Likewise, we ask that all participants please identify yourself before speaking. In order to ensure the best possible transmission of this meeting content, it is suggested that you disable the camera on your chosen device to reduce the video feed and increase the available bandwidth for all attendees. To improve sound quality and reduce the amount of feedback in the system, microphones will be muted by the city until you have a question or comment. For people using Microsoft Teams platform, you can unmute yourself by clicking on the microphone button that appears on the Teams platform if you hover over the console in the middle of half of your screen. For people calling in by phone, please press *6 to unmute yourself. If anyone has difficulty with access during the course of the meeting, please use the chat function in the Microsoft Teams to indicate the issue you are having. If we can provide technical assistance, we'll be happy to do so. In the event that we experience widespread severe technical difficulties such that we are unable to hold the meeting will be adjourned and rescheduled. Please note that there may be delay between the time that something is said and when you hear it at home. Please be patient as we try to manage that delay. We ask that you not use the chat function unless you need to communicate you're experiencing technical difficulties. Now that the meeting is being recorded, it will be on the city website available at lebanonh.gov. So with that, Tony, I'll just give another short summary. The current status of the project is it's in the conceptual design phase. The next step is to obtain survey information, including boundary and topo data, and move to preliminary and final design. The purpose of this meeting is to share the conceptual design with public, the attendees, and discuss questions or comments such that those can be taken into consideration as we move to the next design phases. So now, Tony, I think I'll move it over to you for discussion of the design intent and project limits.
Thank you very much, Brian. I appreciate it. Welcome, everybody. I am going to share my screen now, and what I will do is try and provide I will provide an overview of the project and where we currently stand, if you will, with the project. Brian, I guess I'd ask, is my image coming through, and can you hear me clearly?
Yep, it is. I can see it, and I can hear you well.
Okay, thank you very much. Just want confirmation of that. So again, my name is Tony Punton. I'm the project manager for the Beta Group. We have an office in Manchester, New Hampshire, and I'm a roadway design engineer by training and by degree, and I've been doing it for about 25 to 30 years. We were hired by the city of Lebanon to review the Spencer Street corridor for potential upgrades. The project came about after the downtown visioning project that I believe ended a year or two ago. It was a big study about different roads and different networks, and Spencer Street project is a result of one of that. Spencer Street, if you can all see the little hand, is this corridor beginning just off downtown, as everybody knows, goes east-west and really dead ends here. We call it an east-west road. So if you have questions, if you can reference the north side of the road, which is where the Emerson Place is, or the south side of the road where old DPW is, that just kind of helps orientate us. The project limits started off to be just beyond Taylor and go to the end of the end of the road down by the river. What we have found in doing site walks and reviews is that we worked with the city, and we think we're going to extend the project up to the rail trail. The reason being because of the Taylor intersection and some of the confusion that goes along that way. And the project will actually end quite a bit shorter, not quite a bit, but end shorter than going down to the river, just because of the existing conditions out there. And how we reached that design alternative is let me switch to a more rendered view. We conducted a quantitative and qualitative analysis of several options. And by quantitative, I mean we were able to do calculations as far as cost estimating, amount of pavement, and qualitative analysis, we were able to do, this will have more impact on this property. This will require more permitting. So we conducted an evaluation. We sent it to the city. We looked at it. We had a meeting. We did site walks, and we've decided what we come out with is option 3A. As you can imagine, for option 3A, we looked at variations all over the place. I'll give you a basic rundown of the project and some of the major design highlights. As you can imagine, and everybody I assume is familiar with Spencer Street, from Kendrick up to Taylor, there's really no what I'll call engineering deficiencies from a horizontal or vertical point of view. There's not crest curves, there's not blind curves, so there really isn't any geometry concerns at that location. However, one of the things that we have discovered through observations, through discussions with the city, is that the Taylor Spencer Street, as everybody knows, is a little bit confusing in this area. What we found is that the existing conditions here on Taylor and Spencer basically provide that the Spencer Street has to stop, the Taylor has to stop, and this movement into the driveway or this movement along here will continue on without a stop control. In observing out there, I saw a lot of confusions, a lot of stops in the middle, and people waving each other on or not waving each other on, people not stopping at the stop sign. So based upon the traffic volume and the geometry, we felt that the Spencer Street movement, which is Spencer up towards town, should be the predominant movement, and that Taylor Street should be a stop condition. In addition to that, we are looking at relocating the driveway into into this CBB or CCB, excuse me, as part of the project. As I said, we went through a couple of iterations, and one of some of the major elements that we looked at were roadway width, sidewalk location, and we went through from a very complex of 11-foot lanes, and then bike lanes, and then a grass panel, and then a sidewalk, which was very, very large, down to what you see is a more conservative and a more basic curb and sidewalk project, as we'll call it. The Spencer Street project, as proposed, you'll see here, has an 11-foot travel lane, 5-foot sidewalk, and that's on both sides. That's for the significant majority of the corridor. We'll talk about a little nuances after, but the thought being is that this provides basically the same amount of width that's out there now, a little bit more, but it really will clean up and define the corridor, and especially with granite curbing on both sides of the sidewalk. We envision that the project will look something like this. Now, this is a rendering. We still have final design to do, and just to note that I just want to let the shading and the color appears to be a concrete sidewalk. What we are proposing is a paved sidewalk. It just was easier to define and easier to show in that regard. Some of the other major elements besides the intersection and the roadway widths, as we talked about the project limits, we had felt that from Kendrick Street East, any work that we did with the curbing and sidewalk, because the road narrows so much there and it is such a low volume roadway, that it probably at this time doesn't warrant the need for curb and sidewalk extending all the way down as compared to the amount of disturbance it'll cause and also compared to the cost. So, we made the evaluation that the project should go from basically Kendrick all the way up to the rail trail. Some of the major features I'd like to talk about. There is a project that the city will be undertaking in the fall to upgrade some sewer in this area. Now, the project that they're undertaking is a relining of the sewer just to strengthen the existing sewer that they have. Everything is in situ, in ground, which means that they're not going to be digging up the road. There might be some disturbance at the end at the manholes, but the majority of the project is going to be underground. You probably won't even know it's going on in that area. There is, in association with our project, some stormwater work that we're doing. There is currently 2 major outfalls in the vicinity of this project. One of them is at the end here of Spencer Street towards the river, of course, and the other one is at the end of Mahan, past this property owner in this area here. Our project does not impact these. We don't intend to replace them or upgrade them. These outlets, from observation and also from anecdotal, they need a cleaning and maybe a little bit of armoring, but they do not need to be upgraded. So our project, from a stormwater point of view, will keep the same patterns that are there with new structures and new pipes to get to the same location. The other utilities that we have in this area, of course, there's some utility poles along the way. We do not have the exact location. As Brian mentioned, we're getting the survey, the ground survey. Matter of fact, you may have seen people out there over the past couple of weeks, and that will allow us to ascertain whether we're going to have any utility impacts for utility poles. Based upon some field measurements and field observations, we think we're going to miss every pole, and it's our intent to avoid or miss poles. Sometimes the moving or replacement of poles is a lengthy process and can really hold up the construction. It's not a significant portion of what we feel the construction project will be, so we're going to do all we can to avoid it. This whole area of Spencer Street, matter of fact, all the way up almost to the railroad track, is considered in the floodplain. It's the 100-year flood boundary. And one of the elements and one of the design requirements of working within the 100-year flood is that if you place any material in the 100-year flood, you have to excavate the equivalent material somewhere out of the 100-year flood. So the result is there's no net fill that comes in this big floodplain. We more than likely may have some fill in this area due to the construction of a curb and sidewalk, which is elevated as compared to the existing ground. We are going to go, when we get the decimal point survey, we're going to try and lower the profile of the road a little to kind of have a little bit of a cut or excavation such that it will provide some of the compensatory storage. That's the technical term for the amount we're going to excavate, such that the net effect is zero impact to the floodplain. The city of Concord, the city of Lebanon has jurisdiction over this floodplain. So Christina Hall, as a city engineer, will be working with her on this. Again, the exact amount of floodplain fill and excavation is not yet known, and also the exact location of where we're going to find the compensation is not yet known. It's going to be known. It's going to be definitely based upon the volume. Speaking of, stormwater and floodplain, we will have to receive a permit from New Hampshire DES. Given that this road is mostly a reconstruction of the existing road, we are not touching any of the drainage outfalls, and it is basically a reconstruction as is. We expect relatively minimal permitting relative to stormwater in this area. We've had some initial consultation with DES, and they're probably happy that we're cleaning up this area and going to put in some structures with new deeper bottoms that will able to catch the sediment, and also some hoods which will help with the oil separation in this area. So we will have a little bit of stormwater improvement, but we don't anticipate a significant amount of work in that area. The basic schedule, as Brian pointed out, for this project is that we're at the end of the conceptual design, looking at various items. Where should this go? What were the cost estimates? How far should we go on landscaping? Where should the sidewalk begin? And then all that conceptual work is done using these aerial images, and the survey, which will get the detailed, decimal point, as I said, exact location of driveways, utility poles, and right of way. We should obtain that within a couple of weeks. After that, we're going to take our conceptual design, and kind of truth it versus on the ground survey. We're pretty confident that we took into account most considerations relative to drainage, utility poles that we could, but there will definitely be some, and we use the term tweaking, because I don't think there'll be any significant changes to the overall corridor, just because it's pretty well defined. One thing to remember is that this currently is a conceptual design. The driveway locations and the openings that we've provided are based upon our field observations that we went out there and that we could see, based upon the discussion with the city. You, as the property owners, if you are a property owner, have a much better understanding of your circulation and what's going on. None of this is set in stone. We do have design standards that we as engineers and the city would like to put forward to kind of, for lack of a better word, clean up and manage the openings of the road. But we also need to work with the landowners to see what they are utilizing their property for, most of all. So that being said, our intent is to, sometime in January or February, have all the design wrapped up. We take this project, we put together bid documents and a package. We lay it out for contractors to bid on. They bid on it. We secure a contractor, and next April 1st, they start digging dirt. The beginning of spring, beginning of construction season. Based upon, it's not a huge project, but it's also not small. We think it's going to be a one construction season project. It could possibly be that they construct the road and they put down, the base layer of pavement this year, may wait a year or two, and the city come back and put the final pavement on. Sometimes that helps to make sure everything settles out. That's kind of a detail that'll be worked out, but the majority of the construction will happen next construction season, April through November, if you will. The exact construction sequencing, north side or south side, really, it's a detail that we help the contractor with, but the means and methods is really up to the contractor, and we provide guidance to them regarding restrictions on dates, times, locations, and that's the basic construction schedule. In addition to the design, the permitting, one of the areas for this project, is everybody aware, mostly aware, the Spencer Street right-of-way is very, I'll say, unusual. It's narrow, and it varies north and south on the road. We don't, if you look at the GIS and the tax maps, those kind of give an indication that it's a little funky. It's an older layout. So the city will go through a process of qualifying and quantifying any rights of way that they need, whether it's property to put the sidewalk on, or whether it's an easement to enter your property to construct a driveway. There will be right of way impacts, I venture to say, and I think there's 12 or 14 parcels along this corridor, along the entire corridor. So I know I spoke kind of quick, and I hope I didn't glaze over any issues that were important. I guess I'd ask Brian, is there anything that I didn't highlight that you'd like to add to?
I think you covered it.
Okay. So with that, I don't know, Brian, how you've done it before. I have, just to let you know, in front of me, access to these plans, which you see in front of you. Also, through the magic of Google, we have the ability to walk down Spencer Street from, I think, September 2018. If you have any specific questions, we may be able to do that. But with that, Brian, I don't know if you want to moderate, to go through chat.
Yeah, we can move to question and answer. The only thing I would add, Tony, is that we're not proposing any changes to the underground water systems out there. They're in decent shape. We did some test pits to check it, and the water, pipes are in good shape, and so there's no proposal to upgrade those. So as far as question and answers go, anybody can weigh in at this moment to share your thoughts or comments.
Tony, this is Chris Turgeon.
Oh, hey, coworker Chris, how you doing?
Good. Could you elaborate on any safety improvements potential safety improvements at the intersection of the bike rail at the rail trail and Taylor and Spencer?
Yep. Thanks, Chris. Thanks for reminding me about that. The Taylor and Spencer intersection, as we talked about, from an outside perspective, when we get there, it has a lot of activity. Our instinct as engineers is to clean it up and make it better. And working with the city, we've developed a conceptual improvement. What we'd like to do is, and I'm sorry, I'm locking up a little from a technology point of view. What we intend to do is try and provide a distinctive crossing here at the Northern Rail Trail. We are considering a speed table. People may know that it's not a speed hump, it's a speed table. They're used in a lot of urban areas, especially where you have high volume crossings. I mean, when I've been there, I've seen this whole parking lot taken up by people just getting their bikes ready and heading down south. I live in Concord, northern section of Concord, Pennacook, and I've taken the rail trail down here. So I know I'm about 58 miles away from this. I love this trail. It's fantastic, and it gets a lot of use, and it's only going to get more as the Lebanon grows. We also have in here, and I didn't specifically speak about it, but we're proposing to put in what are RRFB, rectangular rapid flashing beacons. So they would be a device that would that somebody would activate, and you would see a warning. Now, this is not a huge high-speed area. We understand it. I mean, any speed is bad for an accident, or for a pedestrian or bicycle car accident. But it offers another level of comfort, or another level of protection in this area. We're going to be working with the city and the CCB as to the reconfiguration of this, but from an engineering and conceptual point of view, this is what we feel would be the best, would be an appropriate solution to some of the safety concerns or possible conflicting movements that happen at this intersection. Thanks, Chris.
Any other comments from the attendees? Jill, you have your hand up.
Hi, this is Jill Vahey from the Upper Valley Senior Center. How is pedestrian traffic going to be rerouted from the front of CCB across Taylor Street? There's a lot of pedestrian traffic through our parking lot currently.
Okay, and I think I'm zooming in. You are right here, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, I'm sorry. The other one is good. So you're discussing this crosswalk right here to the trail?
Yeah. No, not to the trail. Through there's a lot of pedestrians that come from CCB across the crosswalk through our parking lot, and then out to the other side of our parking lot where there's another crosswalk by our flagpole.
Is this the location that I'm tracing right here?
It is.
Yeah. I guess I'd ask Brian or Jim from the city to answer that. Our project kind of stops in this area. I'm not sure if there's if anybody either on your end or the city ends has a project in mind to address that. Brian?
Yeah, I believe we're having ongoing conversations about, we feel like there's maybe one too many crosswalks there in between the CCBA and the senior center. So we're in very preliminary discussions about potentially eliminating one of those and working with the senior center about their entrance circulation on site. This is in connection with the tunnel and the rail trail as a whole. So it is outside of the Spencer Street project, but sort of right next door. Jim, I don't know if you have anything to add.
No, yeah, this is Jim Donison, Public Works Director, and as Brian mentioned, we've had some preliminary discussions. We forwarded something to Kathleen, and it referred to that center driveway, and the suggestion that we had was to eliminate that center driveway and also to eliminate that crosswalk so that we would have one less crosswalk so there wasn't so much pedestrian crossing along Taylor Street. So by eliminating that driveway, you would provide some more internal parking spaces as well as some internal or some parking spaces along Taylor Street. So, and as Brian mentioned, it's just preliminary. That's something we would like to do as part of the rail trail continuing to the tunnel project, and that was just something that was brought up that may improve the pedestrian traffic flow. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Connie, is it Connie? Or Corrine, do you have a comment? Corrine, you're muted if you're trying to speak.
There, can you hear me now?
Yes, we got you.
Okay, sorry. I have a couple of questions. First of all, how big is the building and what is it going to be used for? Is it all going to be apartments?
Which building are you referring to?
The one that you're going to build in the State Sheds parking lot?
Oh, the proposed Braverman development.
I guess. Is that a totally different meeting?
The old DPW building, is that what you're referring to?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, that's not part of this project. This
Okay.
project is going to go forward, and Jim and Brian, correct me if I'm wrong, this project is going forward regardless if that development happens. We did, however, though, the development, when they put forward their proposal to the city, had a very conceptual design, even less designed, if you will, than we have. And what we have mimicked is what they would like to do with this property as far as the street construction goes. We do not have we as the city and the city's team don't have any design, any responsibility to the actual building and property. What we are looking at is the infrastructure they would like to construct. Now, I've coordinated with the engineer who did the conceptual design, and as we go forward, we'll make sure that we don't construct something that will be in their way, but they still have to go, I believe, and I don't know if the city's planning director is here. He was going to be on, but they still have to go through the whole planning and approval process for their project before it can go forward, unless I'm mistaken.
So this is just a project to improve the road?
Yeah, it's a roadway improvement project for Spencer Street.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and I mean, yes, it is. It's a roadway improvement project.
Yeah, I mean, there's a little bit of utility improvement sort of parallel with this, so that you could say is in conjunction with this and with respect to the sewer lining and the drainage. The drainage is definitely an improvement as well.
Yeah, one of the things that the city recognized that the city is growing, becoming popular. This is a popular area. I mean, regardless of if the Braverman development does come through, my impression would be there might be other parcels that might be attractive to other developers. Now, it still has to go through the planning process, of course. And Brian and I were just talking, and one of the things that we probably will consider along this project is the possibility of some making provisions if it's appropriate for utilities to access parcels in the future for development, such that we don't have to come. Nobody wants to rip up the road again. So that's a consideration. But again, that's months down the line in the final design when we know what really is out there.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Giacon, you're online. I see you have your hand up. Do you have a question?
Yeah, thank you. Chuck Chamley here, Chamley, one of the directors at Geocon. And I think, as you know, we are on the south side at 48 Spencer Street, and also now on the north side at 11 Mahan Street. The aerial doesn't show our new facility.
Yeah, it's a little old. Yep.
Old, yeah. So just a few comments and concerns. One being, we've got 100 employees on the south side facility, and probably 35 on the north side. So anywhere from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. throughout the day, we've got employees that are coming and going to work and back and forth to lunch. So obviously, during the construction period, we're just a bit concerned about employees having the access to and from work. And alongside that, we've also got FedEx and UPS that show up at least twice a day, along with a number of tractor trailer trucks that come in as well. So we're worried about our employees coming and going to work, and also, the products that we make are used on some critical infrastructure projects throughout the world, and we just, we're worried that we need to be able to get trucks in and out of here without too many delays. So, hoping you can comment on that.
Well, I can tell you during construction and in an urban area like this, there is always, somebody's going to have to dig up in front of your driveway to put a drainage pipe in. But one of the key elements that we have on this project is the city will have representation out there. The contractor is not going to be out there unsupervised. I would assume that the contractor and the resident engineer from the city will have direct coordination and will have discussions with whoever your facility manager is. Maybe it's you, saying, hey, on Wednesday, we're going to put this pipe in. You're going to have to go around and use the other driveway, or can they make provisions? The city recognizes that. Brian and I were just talking about that. There's no way that we want to disturb any of the manufacturing, any of the businesses down there. So that's good to hear. But I can tell you that it's not going to be at the contractor's discretion. It'll be under the supervision of a city representative out there.
Tony, can I add to that? This is Brian.
Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, so the other thing to think about is whoever gets chosen to construct the project will be required to provide a traffic control plan. That traffic control plan will have to be safe. So it'll get reviewed by the police and fire departments. They're going to need access to the whole corridor for their vehicles during construction. So at a minimum, there'll be a wide lane to access any property. And there's opportunity on the corridor to potentially have two-way traffic, even if one lane is partially blocked for construction. It's not for the length of the project, but there's areas that it looks like it's possible, and that's something that we would look at when we prepare the traffic control plan.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
That went too far.
So one other thing you mentioned was the curb cuts, and being conceptual right now.
Yep.
There will be a period that we can discuss this with the engineers as to where the curb cuts are going to be for the entrances to both properties.
Yeah, and I mean the intent is that this is an introduction, and this is a thought. I believe these documents are posted. If you're talking specifically about your property, if I'm not mistaken, you basically have a driveway here, a driveway there. I believe what our intent was just to clean it up and define it between the two properties. And I remember Chris saying this, there's a lot of traffic back and forth. So we added a crosswalk in here. And I know this doesn't show it, but you have a new building and a beautiful front yard. And our intent would be to just, this is kind of mimics what is existing out there. We don't have the survey. So that's the basic concept. We're not going down Thompson or Mahan Street at all for any of your access. I believe you have it behind the building, you have more access. But we wouldn't foresee, I mean, if you go out there now, I think that you'll probably agree that you basically have, you've got this driveway opening right here and that one right there. And our intent would just be to put in a length of sidewalk and curbing in between them and a crosswalk over to here. And this, of course, is the old, the former lot. So
Sure.
What our intent was at all of these crossings was to find out what is out there and try and replicate it. Whether it's here at 37 Spencer or at the beginning at these houses, there is some consolidation, but there was never any thought about, of course, eliminating access to a specific parcel. So that was the intent. Now, again, Brian, I believe, has had some communication with some property owners who have questions. We might not understand the traffic pattern, and you might tell us that you're redoing this parking lot in a year, and this won't work. So this is why we're here. It's flexible, and the main intent is to provide a safe, engineered access to property without dire hardship or limiting the uses tremendously.
Sure. Is that a crosswalk that you're depicting across, or is that a speed table?
No, this would be a crosswalk. The feeling is the speed table, and that's something obviously we're discussing with the city because of the pure volume and the significant traffic. I think we can all agree, and we do not have counts, but I think we can all agree that the traffic crossing the rail trail, gets dissipated quite a bit by the time you get here. But there is a significant amount of traffic that goes across this road in this area.
Okay, so it's a crosswalk.
Yeah, it's a regular crosswalk, not a speed table. And the hope is, you talked about your employees going out to lunch. The hope is with a nice, clear, defined sidewalk, they'll feel comfortable or feel, invigorated to walk to downtown as opposed to get in their car. I know it's only 3/4 of a mile, and I know that would be nice.
Yeah, we should have started out by saying we're excited to see this project move forward. It's Spencer Street has been relatively off the radar since we've been down here, and it's good to see that it's getting some attention right now. And it's a bit of a mess, so we're looking forward to what the future holds for it.
Yeah, no lie, it'll get messier during construction, but it is what it is. There's deep pipes in a narrow road.
Sure.
And, as long as you work with the contractor and the representative out there, and you or any other owner has specific things that have to happen at a specific time, but you can give a little on something else. That's always the way to do, is work through it.
Yeah. So while I have your ear, one more question.
Sure.
The parallel parking that I think is depicted on one of the plans, yes, right there.
Yep.
So you've got a dead-end street, you've got parallel parking. What's the thought as to when people leave that parking, what are they going to do? Are they going to turn around in the middle of the street? Are they going to turn around in a property owner's driveway? What's the plan there?
I can understand your concern, and that's been discussed internally, engineering-wise, with the city. What this is what we've depicted here, again, on the conceptual level, is what the Braverman property would like to go forward with. And when they go through the whole planning process, that this is what they would like on their conceptual level. By the time we actually go to construction, the hope is that the planning board and or the city will address those concerns either with a traffic report or something. So we're just actually putting forward a concept that hasn't been approved yet that will go through, I hope, because I mean, answer those questions, because several people had those questions. There is, and I know it's not an ideal, but there is, you know, Thompson to Mahan. I mean, I drove that, but that was me in a small car. I'm not sure how many spaces are here. There might be 8 or 10. I don't know the volume, and you're right. I mean, if somebody's parked here, would they more than likely, you know, go in across the street, turn around there, and come out? Probably, but I believe that concern is probably best addressed by the city at the planning board when they decide what they're going to allow for infrastructure improvements here. So,
Okay.
I don't mean to absolve ourselves of it, but we're kind of mimicking what the concept does, and you know, they as a designers may come to the same conclusion of, yeah, it doesn't work, or they may have a better solution that we haven't thought of.
Sure. One last comment from Geocon. Any thoughts about burying the overhead lines?
From the design engineer perspective, we were not that was, and you hear this all the time, that wasn't in our scope of work. I don't believe the city is currently entertaining that. I'll let them address if it's on the radar screen.
Yeah, this is Brian again. There is no plan to bury the lines. It would be great in a lot of ways. It's just a pretty big undertaking. Utility coordination and costs would really make that extremely difficult. I would say, I mean, this is not an unimportant street. It's an important street. But it's not, you know, it's not Main Street. So in order to do that, there's got to be a warranted reason. And I agree that, you know, aerial utilities don't look great, but that right now is not being considered. I'd ask if Jim has anything to add.
Yeah, this is Jim Donison. I'll add to that. So this project, and Tony could probably add to it, is approximately $1 million to do the infrastructure improvements, the roadway, the curbing, the sidewalk, the drainage improvements. The sewer will already have been completed as part of a lining project that is scheduled to be performed this fall. The water mains in good condition. It's approximately 20 years old, or actually 30 years old, which is relatively short time for a water main being ductile iron. So $1 million for the infrastructure improvements. The city's looking at spending approximately $20 million in the next 6 years on capital improvements, and to increase this by $1 million with all of the other needs that we have in the city isn't in the budget right now. So unless there's some grant money out there that we come across and we would have to change the design, we do not have plans to do any buried utility lines.
Okay.
Okay, are you all set for your comment?
Thank you. Yes.
Yep, okay. I see Carrie Hartman, her hand is up. Do you have a comment?
Hi, yep, it's Carrie Hartman. I'm the executive director of the I just had 2 quick questions. One is, the end of Spencer Street would you begin the construction project on? And secondly, we just have some concerns, and it's great to have the design engineers on here, about if you're approaching our facility from town on Spencer, the way you have it drawn, I don't know if you can move your map over there, but the way you have it drawn, you go left and then into our lot. And
Yeah.
if you could walk us through how, because right now, you can see underneath, it's a straight shot from Spencer into our lot. If you could just walk us through what the thinking is with that. Obviously, it slows traffic down. It's just awkward on the drive.
Okay, you were a little fishbowling, but I think I got the second half. The second question was about the design and the layout here. You're right. As we showed and as we discussed here, the predominant movement is a one-way into a parking lot, and based upon the current configuration, the current regulation, the current striping and stop signs. In the observations out there, I mean, it's utilized obviously, but we saw a lot of confusion of people stopping here or stopping there or halfway through. So we thought that, with Spencer Street being the predominant movement, that it should go first, and then you tee up Taylor. So that was kind of the first look at it. The other thing being is that what we'd like to do is, this is a one-way in, except that it's probably 30 feet wide. I assume that it was originally built as a two-way, but it's a one-way in. So there's a lot of pavement, a lot of where do I go and confusion. Well, I can't say confusion, but in that regard, there's a lot of pavement. The thought is that if a vehicle comes over the speed table, or whatever the configuration is here, they take a left and then they take a right. It is another movement as compared to meandering straight across, but given what we feel is the predominant movement of the vehicular traffic along Spencer Street as compared to accessing here. Another thing, just to let you know, we have what we call the turning templates, which you can imagine we have them in the computer. So we've taken a passenger car and can it take a left and can it take a right? Yeah, it can. The thought is that as far, in general, just to let you know, as far away from an intersection as you can go with a driveway, the better. It's a secondary use of a road typically, and the predominant through traffic is what should get priority, if you will. So that was the thought process, and I mean, ideally, you have about 200 feet between an intersection and a driveway. Now, 200 feet, I think, will put you probably into your other driveway, but that was the thought process behind it. I don't live and breathe it like you do every day. I've observed it. I've worked in the city before. I know the area. So that was a thought process of why we realigned that. And your first question, I'm sorry, but it's a little fishbowl-y.
Okay, sorry. Can you hear me better now?
I can.
The question was, which end of Spencer Street would we start on?
Oh, as far as construction goes?
Yeah.
Oh, I would say I don't know, only because it depends on what the contractor wants to do. I mean, sometimes they have means and methods. Now, I can tell you from a drainage perspective that Mahan is down lower than Taylor. And most of the time contractors go from the low spot, they build to the high spot. So that might mean they start their drainage pipe and end it up here by Taylor. Now, that being said, they are also going to be required to excavate the road to reconstruct the new road. They might start their excavation up here and work their way down. I don't see I'm trying to envision any overriding reason why they would. Now, any contractor worth his salt, and with the city control, basically with a city representative, we can limit, you've got a big July 4th weekend come. All right, nobody's working there. This is where you work with the landowners and the property owners. Or, hey, nothing really happens here till August. Hurry up in the spring and get this done. I mean, I could easily see that happening from a practical point of view. Did that address most of what you had?
Yeah, no, that helps. I knew that as an engineer. I assumed as an engineer you could clarify the turning, that's effective for, it's obviously a change for people who are entering our lot, but it's not something they can't do. I think that it needs some improvement there, because people blow through the stop sign on the other end coming towards Taylor, which can be scary for pedestrians.
Coming this way?
Coming the other way, actually. Coming from
Spencer, taking a left?
Coming from Spencer on, from Geocon, that direction. There's a stop sign there, but it's not the most obvious stop sign.
Yeah.
So people fly through that actually is what we observe most.
Oh yeah, and you're 100% correct, and that's why I believe when you define the edge better and you remove the stop sign, and it feels like they should be the predominant movement, and you have a speed table waiting for them on the other end. I can 100% appreciate your concerns as being different. I think from an engineering point of view, I know it'll work. I think this is the best solution aside from, moving it, redoing the whole thing and moving it down 200 feet or eliminating it. That's probably not in the cards. But this will work. It'll work good. I think people will like it. As an engineer, it feels good.
And I'll just, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, this is Brian. I would say that, I feel we can probably work on the geometry a little bit to make it maybe a little more comfortable for you going in.
Okay.
But at the same time, we want to maintain a safe intersection, as much as we can.
No, yeah, thanks, Brian. I appreciate that. And then I'll just echo what Jill said too about Taylor Street. And I know it's a little bit outside the scope of this project, but that Taylor Street is fast. People it's really, people fly through, but there's parking on both sides. So it feels like a parking lot, even though it's a road. And we have people coming back and forth between the buildings. She's right about the pedestrian crosswalk right there. And we ourselves use it because we have two buildings and the senior center's between both of our buildings. So we have a lot of pedestrian activity between those two, right at that spot where your hand is. Yep. So maybe just to the city group, just looking at some more ways to slow down traffic there and maybe re-examining how we do the parking. We've talked about angled parking spots versus what we have there now to try to just make people a little bit more aware that honestly we've got people of all ages, but definitely dirty children that run out of cars that are parked there that give us pause. We're concerned about the safety there.
Yeah, this is Jim Donison. Let me just add a comment on that. A request has been made to the city to address that exact issue. So the safety committee is of the city, who includes myself, the fire chief, and the police chief, is in the process of taking a look at speed issues and some solutions to the area on Taylor Street. One of the items that the police chief is waiting to do is to put some traffic counters out there and some speed monitors. But with COVID-19, it's difficult to really know what the results are and how they're going to compare to how things were, say, a year ago or even 8 months ago. So we haven't moved too fast on moving forward with a solution on that. But one of the ideas that we've talked about is entertaining the idea of putting some speed tables in there along Taylor Street. So we'll be looking at that further as we move forward.
Jim, I can tell you that the projects that we work on with DOTs and municipalities relative to traffic counts, we don't bother doing them now. They're not valid. Your speed count, of course, is your speed is what your speed is, but the traffic counts now are just so, crazy. Everybody's not going to work, or it's so we don't even do traffic counts anymore. You can do a speed assessment and a operational and a safety, but the counts really aren't even valid anymore.
All right, thanks, Tony.
That's just a general statement. I mean,
thank you all. I appreciate it.
Got it.
Okay, I see Amy Mason has her hand up. Any comments, Amy?
Yes, thank you. I'm Amy Mason from Mason Moving and Storage. We're at 38 Spencer Street next to Giacon on the south side, but I guess west of Giacon. Yeah, there. The rendering that you're looking at right now looks like there's a sidewalk in front of the building.
Yeah.
And we are a moving and storage company and have trucks, big trucks coming in and out and backing into our loading dock frequently. And you can see we have 3 garage doors, and we have trucks that need to back into there to unload. And at the same time, perhaps customers are parking where that Jeep is, for example. And I worry about the sidewalk there. Perhaps if it's
100%.
a low thing that trucks could easily go over, that might be one thing. But a curb there could be problematic for big trucks.
What we did, and this is again, and I mean, I did the best I could using aerial to represent it, but this, you have a loading dock here and a loading dock here. We went out and we measured, and the thought would be is that, vehicles, passenger vehicles could be able to pull in here and drive out like this. They wouldn't be able to pull in straight. You're right. Depending upon what is needed, I don't know if vehicles, they may go probably past your property on the other side of the road and sneak back in, maybe, right? I mean, if they back in, they got to go past your property and back in, and then they pull out. Like I said, we tried to align this with the specific area of where it is. This is definitely a candidate if when we refine the design of a lower level, a lower grade sidewalk, such that maybe if we can toughen it up and make it concrete, that the trucks can clip it, go over the corner if they had to. But I guess the intent is to not have, 100 some odd feet of open space. And that's kind of the engineering consolidation. Right. So no, thank you for your comment. But it was, like I said, the thought was these loading docks, this is passenger vehicles, and then, in on the west, out on the east.
Right. And so I guess the other follow-up question to that would be, if that were to be the case, let's say I had a big truck at each loading dock, and then I needed to get passenger vehicles in to the center to park to come in, our customers who may be just coming in to see us that don't have a big truck, just have a car. And they go in and out if there's, let's say, a truck at either loading dock.
Yeah, well, I mean, okay. I mean, you would hope they'd be able to get around one of them, pull in, and then go out the same way. I wouldn't have thought about that. We can, when we get the survey in and the final design and the layout here, we'll put some templates on there, and we'll see. Yeah, I wouldn't have thought that being blocked on both ends. Where do they go?
I mean, to be frank, I mean, it's probably not going to happen all that frequently, but it is possible that it could. It has happened that we've had 2 trucks there. So that's why right now I can just, I just pull up to the door, but we need to be able to make sure that people can do that, get to the door if there's trucks there.
Okay. Yeah. And if I'm not mistaken, over here is basically where the fenced in, is this part of your property too? This is the edge of the, right?
Yep.
So you have an opening here at the fence, opening at the loading dock, opening at the loading dock. The concern would be these loading docks. Well, I mean, I hate to say it. I hope that the truck wouldn't, how big of it? I mean, do you have the truck going into the travel lane?
Do we?
No, not on either side. Only a tractor trailer, but
very rarely we have a tractor trailer backing up, but we do have often 26 footers which don't go into the travel. I mean, they go into the travel lane to back in, of course.
Yeah.
But once they're parked, they don't go into the travel lane. If we had a tractor trailer, it would. That's very uncommon, but it's not impossible.
Okay, so I mean, you gotta, and we can talk about this. And do you design for the not very common at all, or make sure you can accommodate the 26 footer? So. Right. Yeah, that's a good comment. Thank you. We'll take a look at it. And I know that as Brian and I were talking earlier before the meeting, and I think I mentioned it, that almost every landowner here is going to be impacted just because it's a 30-foot right of way, and we're almost constructing a 30 feet of pavement and sidewalk. So you will have to, there will be some right of way impacts, and the city will have to, I can't say deal with you. I don't mean it that way. The city will be undertaking a right-of-way process where we can work together on it.
Okay.
And that's a good comment. I know we can make that work. And whether it's a lower sidewalk or whether it's the openings, or whether we say, okay, if there's one truck there, what's the likelihood of another truck going to be there? And somebody has a little inconvenience, but I know. I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
So, Brian, it's Meg
Yes.
Carlton on the line, and I don't exactly know how to jump in because I'm not on the computer.
Okay. You're on now.
Okay.
And we did get your letter today.
Yes, thank you very much.
Right.
Anyway, because this tends to follow up with Amy's recent comment. I thought I would jump in at this particular point. We've been trying, as you know, for years now to get our property at 25 and 37 Spencer redeveloped. We just received our planning board approval on March 9th, and then the world went to hell on the 15th. So we are still trying to figure out how to achieve the improvement to our property. But one thing that Beta Group may find interesting is that as part of our process, we underwent a boundary survey and topographical survey for our property. And one of the things that was revealed was that because it looks like Beta has been essentially just taking its measurements from the existing street on the ground, but our surveyor was the one who let us know that Spencer Street has actually drifted quite a bit to the south over the years. And so the sidewalk that is proposed for in front of the Mason property actually no longer exist within the city's right-of-way. The right-of-way actually extends much more to my property on my side, which is why I knew, I was going to be losing the 10 spaces of parking across the street. So I think once they end up going through that right-of-way research, they may find that they actually putting a sidewalk in front of Mason's property may be complicated. It may not work.
I can actually address that. We did have your plans, and they were great, and it did confirm what we decided as a project team is there's going to be a right-of-way impact because of the narrow width of the right-of-way, almost no matter what. We did not want, and we didn't have the information, of course, but we did not want to take the road, shift it north, shift it south to back and center it in the right-of-way. And as I said, every property owner that has the right to, if their parcel is impacted, they're going to meet with the city. So we were aware, maybe not to the extent that you said, but we're aware that almost every parcel here is going to have a right-of-way impact, which means their property line is X and the contractor has to go over it maybe to pave a driveway, or the sidewalk might actually be on their property, or the sidewalk might be 10 feet off their property line. We understand that, but from a construction point of view, if we wanted to take and shift the road and try and make it in the right of way where it was, or whatever happened to it, it would be kinked and bent all over the place, and it wouldn't be conducive to replacing the road. So the decision was made that we'll deal with the right of way impacts as opposed to moving the road. And in your location, one of the things that you had said, from Mahan Street west all the way to Emerson Place, you own that frontage. There's 37 and 25, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. What we did, maybe with the plans that you had seen at one time, is we took your design plans, which you got approved, and same with Braverman. The basic concept is what we depicted on the plans, because we were going to go forward with it, and as you said, March 15th happened. What we've done since then, and maybe the updated plans, I believe they're on the website, but maybe you haven't seen them. We went out recognizing, and because you've talked to Brian, you've talked to us, that you're not going forward with it anytime soon, is that our design, and I'm sorry if you're not on video, you can't see it. We are basically replicating as best we can the openings that you have directly in front of your building, and also the, I'll call it you have an opening almost right across from the fence of the moving place across from you that is kind of right down the center of the property. So those two openings are there. There is, unlike the previous version, which replicated your design, we're not eliminating any parking along the front of your building.
Oh, well, you are eliminating the parking in front of my building because you're putting a sidewalk in front.
Well, you can park behind the sidewalk. And not directly, I guess, not directly in front of your building. No, I mean, and I'm sorry, but you're not on video. Is that what you said? You're just calling in?
Right, I'm not. Yeah.
I tell you what, if you want, get a hold of Brian, and me and Brian will we'll get you on video and I'll talk you through it, because I think, and I read your letter, and I think what you're talking about is the old design that showed curb and sidewalk right in front of your building where people pull up right dead in front of it. That's not the case anymore, because that was your design that you wanted to do at one time to curb off that area. So we replicated it in the earlier versions, but we realized that you had told us that it's not going forward. So we've revised the design to reflect that there's no parking eliminated there. And we'll show you.
Well, what I was going to suggest is that, is it really necessary to have a sidewalk on both sides? That was just one question I had. And the other concern I have is that, our project isn't entirely dead. It's just that we are having a hard time seeing our way forward at this time because of the coronavirus. So my other concern has to do with the code 152.12 that is going to prevent this building from accessing the sewer hookup, because the problems that Geocon had accessing the sewer from that runs along Mahan Street means that they couldn't do it. We're not going to be able to do it. And so the question is whether, the one thing that would help us out is that if we knew that there were going to be a manhole access on the Spencer Street, on the north side, would mean that we would not have to street. But I don't know if the city's willing to do that.
That'll let the city answer. And I understand. I did hear that high groundwater was a problem there in a deep sewer. So, Brian, I think you can address that.
Yeah, sure. So two things. One, so if we have the road all dug up, it may make sense for us to add a stub to the sewer line, add that to the contract so that when you come along with your project, you don't have to go into the street to connect to the sewer.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a possibility if we can get it approved internally. And then another element to think about is there is an exception in the 152 code that allows for utility construction or connections.
Well, it says for new development, not existing development.
Well, if you redevelop, you could call that a new development. I think we could work with you on that issue, but I feel, and I can't speak for the entire city, that a stub makes sense because we would have so much road construction going on to access the sewer at that point in time. Connect a stub may make more sense than having to come back later in a year or two or four and re-dig it up, and you know what I mean? Because that might be a cleaner solution in the long run. So we can work with you on that issue.
Okay, that is excellent news. But that was one of my primary concerns. Is just that there's going to be a lot of movement on on this eastern end of Spencer Street, and I want to make sure that we're all able to kind of get in without being prevented from getting in later.
And to address the question about sidewalk on your side, we felt for consistency. I mean, GeoCont right next to you has a big facility, a lot of people. It just kind of felt right. I mean, when you redevelop, we hope that people are going to use that sidewalk on the north side to go downtown.
Actually, no. Do not mistake. I actually am totally in favor of the sidewalk. I think it makes excellent sense.
Oh, okay.
I am concerned about losing a certain amount of parking because it may take a while to get to that eventual design. But I imagine that pretty much any development that we would do to our property would kind of eliminate that parking along the front anyway. It's just that if and if we are able to go through with the original plan as approved in March, that would be great. If we end up needing to change our focus and go commercial instead, it's just that I'm concerned that we're not going to have the number of spaces required in the inside of the parking lot for proper circulation for big trucks, if that's what we need, blah, 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 if we lose those 10 spaces. So I would just like to know from the city that they would be willing to work with us on the parking end of things.
Well, again, I know you have Brian's contact. You sent some information. It would be great if, and I think that if I just showed you what we did, that you'd say, "Oh, okay."
Great. Okay.
Yeah, and Tony, I'll just add that similar to Mason storage, we can probably add some turning movements on the property to make sure that the design vehicle is not encumbered heavily by virtue of this project.
Now, just to let you know, on your 37, which is closest to Mahan, you have parking right out front. As you go west, you basically have an aisle that goes right in between 37 and 25. As you head towards 25, I believe there is some garage doors that face the road. There's an opening there, and then although it's still the same parcel, it's an open field, if you will.
It is a separate lot. It was a surprise to us. Trust us. So yeah, it was a surprise to us. That's not the way it had been depicted on the tax maps for 30 years. But yeah, it is.
Okay. Because it's still depicted on the tax map, because I called it up and I said, "Wow, the 25 goes all the way to Emerson Place driveway." But if you're telling me not, I wouldn't doubt it. But the tax map.
Both buildings are actually on the primary lot. And there is a little lot between 25 Spencer and Emerson Gardens, which is a vacant lot. It's a little square. It's 6,000 square feet.
Okay, and just so you know, we didn't, and not knowing where the property lines are, it looked like the usage, we left an opening there. Our intent going forward was, or going all along, was to clean up but not limit access. So I'm glad we're having this discussion with you and the other owners to what it's going to be used for and what the concerns are.
Yeah, I mean, until 2022, Bernardi Steel is going to be using that lot for steel storage, and it means that Bernardi has big trucks that are moving steel back and forth with forklifts and everything else. So my concern about the parking, the sidewalk along that particular section, is that you're going to have 18-wheelers needing to drive up on that sidewalk for, a couple of years, and it just, I don't know how that works.
Well, I mean, I guess I'd understand your concerns, but also is the, is that an appropriate use of a city street?
It's
right?
Not, well, it's just that's the way they have pulled traditionally the mid 60s, pulled their trucks into that yard to allow them to move their steel. So they're not actually parked in the city street when they do this, but they need to be able to access off the city street, which has never had a curb in front of it.
Well, I mean, again, we have a 30-foot opening there for them. If something more is required or some other considerations are required, we can. The intent is obviously not to limit access. It's not to eliminate access, but also to use good engineering practice on how openings should be, because this road is going to get, as everybody recognizes, this road is going to get more and more utilized, and it may be okay, 1960 to park a trailer there, but with all the development that's happening and the increase in traffic, might have to tighten up a little the usage.
Yeah, we made, and it may be that I can discuss this with my tenant and see whether or not he can, figure out a way to maneuver the truck into that area. But I just want to have the concern noted.
Yep. Thank you. Yep.
So I think those are all of my comments, I think, right now.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Megan.
Thank you.
So looks like John Lambert maybe on the line has a question.
Yes, so I'm curious about the sidewalk when it goes through. Is the city going to plow that, or are the property owners responsible for plowing that and maintaining that? And if the sidewalk does go out of the easement and on someone's property, does the company need to carry liability insurance for someone having an accident on the sidewalk?
This is Brian. I'll weigh in on that. So I would envision that any kind of easement agreement we work out with an owner would be include provisions that says the city would maintain the sidewalk system, and it would also include language that would eliminate any kind of liability to the landowner by virtue of having that easement in place. And Jim, feel free if you have more to add.
That is correct, Brian. I think you explained it very well.
All right, and that would also include so I'm the facilities manager for Geocon, and that would also include the city would plow our walk down there too in the new building? Or would we still be responsible to plow that section ourselves?
I'm not sure I know the one you mean, but we wouldn't plow.
It's actually, Brian, it's a standalone, I believe he's talking about where where I'm pointing now where we don't have the aerial image, their new building.
Yes.
Okay, so it's a sidewalk, so to speak. It's not a walkway to the building.
Correct.
Yeah, that I don't know the technical or the legal paperwork behind that, but if it's considered a sidewalk, we would maintain that as the city.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Anybody else? I don't see any more hands up at this moment, but feel free. You don't have to raise your hand to ask a question or have a comment. If you're muted, unmute yourself in the middle of the screen or press *6 if you're on the phone.
Okay.
Tony, I'm not hearing any more questions. I got one other comment on a phone call. It's along the same lines. It was in front of the DNR garage. It's the same line, along the same lines as what we've heard tonight about truck access relative to the sidewalks. So I think that's consistent with the theme we've been hearing on three properties at least. So same question, same concern. I would envision that being dealt with by us, first of all, getting the survey data, second of all, fine-tuning the design, and then confirming that the design vehicles that are using those facilities are not unduly prohibited from making the movements they need to make.
I mean, a lot of times we have the design and we say, hey, we think this will fit, and then the landowner say, no, I go this way, and it's just an easy adjustment, and we just don't know. I see Jill has her hand up, and Carrie does also. I don't know if they clicked by accident.
Yeah, this is Carrie. Can you hear me okay?
We have you.
Okay, yep. I just had one other question. I'm just thinking about all the construction trucks that are going to be coming down into Spencer Street, and I'm wondering if they're going to be taking Taylor or they're going to be coming from the green into the construction zone.
I'm trying to think where the pits are. It might be difficult to come down Taylor. That doesn't seem conducive. Probably going to come from the town, right? The city.
Yeah, it's almost like, I mean, a means and methods question for a contractor. He's got the legal right to use a public street. It's going to come down to his comfort level on what direction he approaches the project from. I think if I was driving a large truck, I'd probably take the green route going up around the park.
Yeah, we know he's not coming from the east, that's for sure. So.
Okay, and selfishly, I'm just going to vote for that option. That sounds fantastic for us. But I know that we have road frontage on Taylor, and most of the people on this call are on Spencer, so they're affected in a different way. But not having the trucks go through Taylor would be helpful for us, just because, again, we have so many concerns about the safety of that road with our members and our little kiddos that are crossing that street. Thank you.
Well, I would hope that some of the continual trucks would be for a paving operation or for shipment of gravel. I mean, there should be enough property, and there's enough open land, and maybe it's the city property, that I would hope that the contractor will be able to have a good supply yard, which means that they come in, they get all their pipe there. They're not every day with new pipe. I would hope. So, you know, that may cut it down, but there will be, and again, this is where you'll know, hey, we're paving, and, you know, it's going to be continual trucks. Now, whether they're Spencer or whether they're Taylor, they have to get the hot mix from the plant. So.
Great, thank you so much.
Jill, did you have another comment? You're muted, Jill, if you're trying to speak. Not hearing from Jill. So I noticed, if he's still on, David Brooks was on the call. Is he still here? I don't know if David, if you're still on the call, if you have anything you would like to add as planning and zoning director?
I don't see him on the list.
Okay, so he must have stepped off.
Okay. Well, with that, everybody here, I believe, you know, you found this Zoom. If you have any questions specifically, you can contact Brian. He and I go back and forth all the time. Especially if you're on the phone and want to see some pictures, we can send them to you. It's really nothing to get a screenshot to you and talk you through it if you have any concerns.
Okay, so sounds like we've addressed comments, questions. We've gotten through the design intent and approach here. So with that, I think we've concluded the meeting unless anybody has some parting thoughts. Okay, I think we're good to go, Tony, and thanks for your presentation.
Brian and Jim, can we hang out for a little bit?
Sure.
Just a couple minutes.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you, everybody, for your input.
Thanks, everybody.
Hey, Chris, if you could hang on the line too, that would be cool.
Okay. I guess we should ask the guests to depart.
Yeah, Martin's still hanging on. I know that.
Hi, Martin.
I know that I teach sometimes students with a Zoom meeting, and all of a sudden it's like, you know, I'm talking to a professor, and I see that 2 or 3 are hanging on, and I realize they just zoomed and walked away.
Yes.
I just did. I did that, Jim.
Okay.
Yeah.
I believe we're still recording, just an FYI.
Yeah. And I think there's a phone call still on the line. There we go. Looks like it's just